Thank you, Presiding Officer. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I'm grateful to have the opportunity to do so, because this is an issue that I've wrestled with, like a number of members, for many years. And I want to thank in particular Lord Alf Dubs, Linda Fabiani and the much-missed Christina McKelvey for the very formative conversations that I've had with them that have led me to the vote that I'll cast today. The Green MSPs in this Parliament were elected on a manifesto commitment to support a safe and compassionate system of assisted dying. And to me, that sets two clear tests. Is this proposal safe, and is it compassionate? And I still even now ask myself whether any system for assisted dying can be safe and compassionate. I think that is a question that we should still be asking at this stage. But the status quo is neither safe nor compassionate. And we see that in the horrendous deaths that are unwillingly endured across this country every day. And for that reason, I will vote for this bill at stage one. Not because I support it as currently drafted, but because it's Parliament's job to wrestle with the most difficult issues facing our society, and I believe there are none more difficult than this. This issue deserves the opportunity of more detailed scrutiny and for changes to be proposed at stages 2 and 3. Those might address my concerns, and if not, I will vote against it at the final stage. I appreciate that many constituents have shared the most traumatic experiences of their lives with me, and I have a huge amount of respect for Liam MacArthur and the campaigners who have brought the bill to this stage. My reluctance, my hesitation here is not based on my faith. Easing suffering is entirely compatible with my Christian belief. But I have often found this debate difficult to engage in as a person of faith, because some advocates of change have given the clear impression that they think people of faith should not be heard on this issue, that our opinions and our underlying moral codes are less legitimate. And I hope Parliament rejects that and ensures that all voices continue to be heard in this discussion. I want to use my time to lay out some of the concerns that I have about whether the bill meets those safe and compassionate criteria. Others have laid out the issue with what I think is a relatively broad definition of terminal illness. I share those concerns. But my main area of worry is in the safeguards against coercion. Coercion isn't defined in the bill, quite rightly. I accept that to do so would essentially create a checklist approach that could be too narrow and worse than what is currently there. But I agree with the recommendation of Dr Sandra Lucas and Dr Rhoda Winnington from the University of the West of Scotland that the bill could be amended to specify that a robust training strategy is required. And I'm also minded to think that guidance on identifying coercion be put on a statutory footing. But my deeper concern about coercion is rooted in the fact that this is a dispersed rather than specialist service. I agree with the BMA that it should be a specialist service. Edward Mountain, I think, quite usefully defined types of coercion: active, passive and state. Pam Duncan-Glancy quite rightly pointed out systemic coercion. It is extremely difficult for a medical professional to make judgments about whether their patient is being coerced. And I want the highest degree of training for those making that decision, more than I think is realistic for GPs who are already under huge pressure in their existing roles. And I also recognise the sensitive topic of many disabled people's poor and sometimes discriminatory experience of general practice. Resource pressures can also affect professional judgment. Specialist services wouldn't prevent resource and workload pressures affecting decisions, but I think they would better insulate from that. It's not exactly the same, but this debate has put me in mind of people I've seen who should have been taken into the care of the state under the Mental Health Act, but were not. And resources, availability of beds and of staff clearly influence the decision of medical professionals in those situations. Drs Lucas and Winnington have also proposed an independent advocate role, and I think that should be seriously considered. Non-clinical support would provide, I think, a hugely valuable and important safeguard. The final point that I want to make is on public opinion. I think it's right that we give that serious weight, and it has certainly shifted. There is a clear majority of people in favour of the principle of assisted dying. But where people from a minority or a marginalised group tell us that something would make their lives worse or actively endanger them, public opinion is not a counter-argument. We don't need to look back far in our history to find public opinion firmly in favour of unjust and harmful laws. I'm not voting for this bill at stage one because the majority of my constituents want me to. I'm doing it because I believe the circumstances of our deaths should be as safe and compassionate as possible. And I'm not yet convinced that the bill would establish a safe and compassionate system of assisted dying, but with further scrutiny and amendment it might. The reality right now, shown by the experiences shared today, is not safe or compassionate. People are suffering terrible deaths, traumatising those they leave behind. Some are taking their own lives, often in horrific ways and out of desperation. Those wealthy enough are able to travel to a country where they can access an assisted death, often earlier than they would otherwise want, and dying far from home is another form of indignity. They all deserve better than that. I don't yet know whether this bill will be better for society at large or for our most vulnerable in particular, but I want to try, and I think we need to try.